Here are the two nonfiction books that I have read in February. I didn't include them in my previous video because it's way too long. So please enjoy.
This is the first book, and this is the second book. This one was also translated into English, so this is an old edition. I think it was published in 1999, so it's a long time ago, and it's a book by Wojciech Tochman, so he's a Polish journalist. The French title is Mordre dans la pierre. It was written in Polish at first, and it was translated into English, and I will actually add the English title somewhere in the video, but I'm not sure it's actually the same title. Mordre dans la pierre means to bite into stone. So it's so weird, but it's an idiom, and you learn about actually what it means in the book. And the second book I want to talk to you about, and I've just finished reading it this morning, so it's very fresh into my memory and in my heart. And it's called The Bosnia List by Kenan Trebincevic. So let's go back to Mordre dans la pierre. Mordre dans la pierre is actually an investigation by a journalist who wanted to meet F. Klonowski. She's an anthropologist, and she went to former Yugoslavia after the end of the war in 1996 to start looking at the bones, human bones that were found. And because what she can do, which is amazing, is that she was able to identify someone just with bones. So, I was talking to you earlier about the CSI, but her job, her talent, she talks about it in the beginning of the book, how she became anthropologist and why suddenly the bones starting to talk to her. Like she will know if that bone belongs to that body or if this, hip bone goes into that part. That's fascinating because it's a weird thing, but at the same time, and DNA was actually used for the first time in former Yugoslavia at a very large scale to identify the victims of their massacres that took place in Bosnia. So she goes there and she tries to, give these people back their identity and give their families, a relief and a grave, to build and a place to go mourning. So it's a very powerful book, but it's still an investigation. It's you hear about her, how she feels about it. She tries not to think about it too much because at one point she finds bodies and bones, and she knows these bones belong to a child. I mean, and she finds a little Superman, toy, and this toy is actually the only thing that can connect the father who's looking for his child to these bones. So it's very strong. And she goes into different places in Bosnia. She's called by people who said that they found, places where they found bones. And she goes there and spends, days and nights digging, and with the help of other people. I think they were sent by the UN. I think it was a mission that was actually funded by the UN, United Nations. So, or the European nation, I'm not sure which one, but she has the money to do it and the time to do it and the DNA testing, then to confirm that these bones actually belong to that person. So throughout our journey through this country, of course, you see what happened to the war, and I really learned a lot about it because the war ended, and this country was left, again. I just remember how fast it went and how fast we forgot about it. But the thing is that the Dayton Agreement that was, pushed forward by Clinton kept the enemies and the victims together, okay, in the same country. And this book does explain that much way better than, maybe political books. It really helped me to understand what was going on after the war. I knew what happened during the war. I know on a personal level people that went through that war, so that's why. And I went to that country actually when it was still actually the European army that was still, you know, regulating the transportation. Like the airport was the French soldiers that were actually ruling it. So, and I saw the villages that had been destroyed and everything. So that's why it's a personal story to me. But this book is really good at the same time as, dealing with humans, and also dealing with history, and to show how hard it was for them to remain in a country where your enemies were your neighbors, okay, because it's a civil war. And so now their enemies are still around, and they have been moved. Their enemies have been moved too, away from their homes. But the Dayton Agreement said, oh, you can go back to your old place and, claim your house or your apartment back. And actually, I have no idea how you can do that if you know that the whole city, has become, either Muslim Bosniak, or Serb. I mean, I don't. So yes, the tension is still really high, and of course the bones, and you hear the stories of these people that were killed, a few of them, and it's a very strong read. It's a beautiful book. Of course, the theme is very, heavy, but really, it's been published in English not so long ago, so you can easily find the English translation. The French translation is very old, but the English one is really recent. So please read this book. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name right. I know Russian, but Polish I don't. So I would say Wojciech Tochman, but he's done a great job. And Eve Klonowski is an amazing person. My last book is a memoir by Kenan Trebincevic, The Bosnia List. So this one is, of course, deals with the same subject, the war in the Balkans, the former, Yugoslavia. The war took place between 1992 and 1995. So it's a long time ago. But he took me back there. He definitely took me back there. It's still very hard for me to talk about this book yet because, I finished reading it this morning. So I'm going to try to do my best. Kenan was 11 years old when the war broke up in his country, Yugoslavia, in 1992. He was living in Brčko. I hope I pronounce his name right because there is no vowel, okay, except the O at the end. But I think it's Brčko, which is like at the northeast of Yugoslavia, which was very close to the border of Croatia. There was a bridge that, separated, there's the river Sana, and that was a bridge that separated the two Yugoslavian countries, because at that time Croatia and Serbia and Montenegro and Bosnia and Slovenia were all part of one country, Yugoslavia. And then all of a sudden, the civil war broke out, and this family, Kenan was actually the second son. He had an older brother who was probably 17, 18 when the war started, and his parents, his loving parents. His father, Keka, was very well known and very respected in his city. They lived a pretty, actually, nice life. They had a very nice apartment in one of the last buildings, very modern buildings. He used to play lots of sports. He was a karate kid, and he was very fan of his karate kid teacher. He was his hero, and he was really good actually. Just before the war broke out, he actually won his brown svelte, and I don't know how you say it in English, but the brown belt. He won his brown belt just before the war broke out, so he was a very happy kid. And then all of a sudden everything changed, and in this building, their neighbor was actually Serbian, her husband too, but they also had Croatian neighbors. I mean, at that time people lived together, and he's Muslim. Kenan's family is Muslim, but the Muslim in Bosnia, I'm not sure Americans know about it, but we're not the Muslims from, as you can imagine, wearing hijab or having long beards. Most of them were actually non practicing Muslims. They knew about their religion, of course, but they didn't practice it. Kenan just goes out, drinks, has fun. He's a normal kid. His mother was working. She was actually doing pretty well at her job too. The family, chores were, done both by the father and the mother. So it's a very modern, family. And being Muslim has always been something really cool, but it's not like their main focus in life. But all of a sudden, they are chased, they are killed, they are slaughtered because they're Muslims. And all of a sudden, they don't belong to that country anymore. The Croatians are also, at one point, they're both enemies and allies, because the Serbs are going to not only attack the Bosnian Muslims, but they're gonna go after the Croatians who are Catholics, and also go even after the Bosnian Serbs. So the Serbs were also, I have to say, this story is really hard to talk about it still today. I have made a few Serbs, and I know that it's still very strong in their heart, because they have suffered a lot too. The Muslims were the victims of actually slaughters, massacres, Srebrenica, when almost 8,000, which is like the number itself is just, were murdered. They would be killed like in mass killings, okay? Children, young men, old men, women, they were all killed, okay? The Serbs were killed during the war because they were fighting. So they had like the most, actually the, how do you say, the highest rate of death was among the Serbs. They lost 1,000 of young men to the war. So I know that and they lost also their homes to the war. So there were no winners at the end of the war, okay? No winners, they all lost, okay? And that's why 30 years later, it's still a heartache, and the country is still dealing with it. And the Dayton Agreement said, you have to learn to live again together. And I can understand that it's not possible for some of them, because Kenan tells a story of how his favorite, human being, his teacher, karate teacher, turned on him and tried to kill him, okay? So he admired a man who suddenly, the next day, said, "Oh, you're just a Muslim. You deserve to die." And the story about their neighbor's wife too. The neighbor was Serb, but he was a very he helped, okay, Kenan's family. A few of them really, they helped them, and they helped them to escape to the United States. But there were also all these people that actually were looting the homes of Muslim people, even when they were still in their homes. That's what happened to Kenan's family. And this book is a heartache, okay? Because when you read it, you can feel Kenan's anger, hatred. He still has it. And so they flee. They manage to flee the third time. And they manage to flee and move to the United States. So at first they want, just to shut the door and forget all about it, but they cannot, okay? First, because the war is still going on, and then the Dayton Agreement stopped all hopes of like a victory over the Serbs. The Dayton said, no, we stop the war now, and it's like it's a no-win situation. And years go by, and Kenan's mother dies, and his father is getting old, and he wants to go back to Bosnia. Okay, he's not that old, but still, he misses his friends so much. It's been like 20 years, and the war is over. He knows that in Batsko, you still have, the old neighbors, some of them, but he wants to see his family, his late wife's sister, his nieces and nephews, his best friends, and he was, as I said before, a well-known man and respected, and that's probably why they were still alive. Okay, the four of them. It was because of Kenan's father. So Kenan doesn't want to go back to Bosnia, and he's really against it. But finally he says, okay, we're going to take daddy back to Bosnia. But he still has his dreams of revenge, okay? He wants to revenge his mother. He wants to, so he makes this Bosnia list. And this Bosnia list is about getting revenge, okay? He wants to go on the grave of his karate teachers, Pierre, because he learned that he died actually during the war. He wants, yes, he's very angry. And when they actually land in Croatia and then drive to Bosnia, you see how tense he is and how scary his brother is, because he's like, you're going to get arrested. If you fight with someone, we're going to get in big trouble. And you can't, because dad is, trying, to find his roots back, his family back. So you can't spoil his trip. So they go back to Batsko, and you see how Kenan go through these days and how he manages, to grow out of this journey. And he's 30 years old, okay? And he's the age of his karate his karate teacher at that point. So he's like, oh, my life has changed so much, but their lives haven't changed. And of course, back in, I think it takes place in 2011, that time, Bosnia was not going through, a lot of unemployment. I think it was like 40% of unemployment and corruption, and the war has really destroyed the economy of the country. And the tensions are, of course, still there. And some villages, the people haven't come back. And but it's a beautiful memoir. It's a harrowing story. You cannot but feel close to Kenan, and how he felt and how crazy this war was. I mean, his testimony, his stories about everything that they went through, or the neighbors or their friends. It's really crazy and scary. There's one thing though that I want to point out, because Kenan was very mad at his family for not keeping in touch with him, especially his cousin. I found it a little bit weird that 20 years later, he hadn't the time to think that he escaped, okay? He and his brother and his mom and dad managed to escape. They actually went through the war. The war lasted 5 years, and they left after 16 months of war. But they left, okay? So it was terrible 16 months, okay? I know that, I don't. But they left, they managed to escape, and their family didn't, okay? Their grandmother managed to do it, but years later, but that cousin didn't. Their cousins went through the 5 years, and then they went to that, crazy phase when one day the Dayton Agreement said no more war. So you had like the UN peacekeepers over there, but then you have to live with your neighbors and your former, the former criminals that chased you and tried to kill you, okay? So they went through so much more than Kenan. Kenan went through hell, but he doesn't seem to realize that, he didn't go through the whole war, okay? He didn't stay the whole time, and he didn't stay afterwards. And To me, I mean, is when he goes and sees his cousin and asks her, why didn't just you keep in touch with me and everything? Because he's like that, he's very tense and very nervous, and he wants to get answers, and he does ask the questions and the tough questions, but it's really great for him. And she does answer him brilliantly. I mean, her reply is so good that he realizes that all of a sudden that he should be the one, saying I'm sorry and not her. But it's too late. But there's no point in the book, not one time, when he goes, and stop and say, hey, we managed to escape. We went through hell during 16 months, but we didn't have to stay until the end and eat grass, okay? Because that's what they did at the end, okay? They didn't have any food left, so they would eat grass. He didn't go through that, okay? So, and he had people helping him, and most of them were Serbs. So at the end of the book, he changes his mind, and and he does make up another list, and I won't say what is in this list, but it's a great list, and he's grown, and I hope that he's found the peace that he didn't have for years. I also like the fact that he mentioned, I didn't know that, about the Queens and the big community of Bosnian people over there. I didn't know that. And the fact that they actually kept their culture alive so strongly, I was really surprised. And you cannot but love his father. His father is such a good man. And he had a stroke, and he had learned English, but then with the stroke, he forgot all his English, so I know he only speaks Bosnian. I also love that at the end of the book, he does write a glossary of all the Bosnian words or idioms he does use in the book, and it's great for me. So yes, it's a great book, and this is it for my wrap up. So it's gonna be a long wrap up because I see that these two books I spent almost 15 minutes talking about them. So that's why you probably skipped that part. But if you didn't, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon